All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here at Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, the Lakerholics.com site, Lakerholics on Facebook, Lakers Fast Break, wherever you get your social media, and of course, our good friends at the Hoopheads Podcast Network. It is sincerely appreciated. Well, I promised my listeners out there that I would go ahead and do team previews of all the NBA teams. So not only are we doing a NBA season preview with my good friend Rafael Barlow from the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast, that's going to show up for you audio listeners on Tuesday morning. So look out for that. But if secret, if you've got YouTube and the Lakers Fast Break channel on there, you can check it out now. So that has all the season predictions of where we think everyone's going to fall in the conferences between me and Rafael. So you got to check that out. It was a great conversation. So again, that's going to drop on Tuesday for all you audio listeners out there. But I promised separate team previews, and scheduling issues aside, we had cancellations here on my part, on all our guest part. So we did get through 9-10 of them. So we're going to knock out the rest of them today. And who better to go ahead in a pinch and save me from ultimate humiliation than two great guests indeed. They are the men behind Lakerholics.com. Well, of course, with Laker Tom. But Laker Tom, all he knows is Lakers. So he doesn't really care about any other team outside of that.
No, he really cares about Brooklyn. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're the gold standard of NBA teams for all time.
But they are here indeed to go ahead and help us out today. It is Jamie Sweet and the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Guys, they're NBA aficionados. So who better to get on a show like this than NBA fans like me? It is Jamie Sweet and Magic Man, Sean Grice. Like I said, guys, great to have you here on the show today.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thank you very much, Gerald.
Oh, you know it, my friends. You know it. Great to have you here. You guys are great commenters on the Lakerholics.com. And no, it's not just a troll, Laker Tom, even though he has always a lot to say at Lakerholics.com. Please check out his great articles there. I always love his posts on Twitter, which are always in bold. So you know that something is on the way from him and his now affinity for Austin Reeves. But that's another story for another day. You heard the one on the other day on Laker Tom on Twitter, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
We're not going to get into Austin Reeves today. I have high hopes for the young man.
No, this is about the rest of the NBA.
He's gonna play. We all know he's gonna play 52 minutes a game. So
yeah, something like that.
and he's double the shooter Tyler Hero is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yes.
And he's two Alex Caruso's in one man. So
absolutely, yes. Hall of Fame career starting for Austin Reeves. But I will say that we've got a lot of great teams to cover today. So we're going to start off with the Western Conference. And we're going to start off with a fan favorite out there. And I'm going to start off with you, Sean. Your thoughts. We're going to try and go rapid fire as best we can on this. We're going to knock out as many as we can. We're going to start off with Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, with Jason Kidd transferring over from the world champion Lakers of 2020. He had that experience as being on the staff. We all thought he was going to stab Frank Vogel in the back at some point in time, or Frank Vogel would be fired and Jason Kidd replaced, but it didn't work out like that because the Lakers won their title. And even though last season didn't work out the way it should for the Lakers, he was still brought over from the Lakers, took the place of Rick Carlisle, because you saw that implosion within the confines of the Dallas Mavericks between the front office and the gambling aficionado who is all part of the decision making, which nobody liked, and the Luka Doncic, Rick Carlisle feud and all that going on. So that seems to be cleared up for now. But your thoughts, Sean, on the Dallas Mavericks?
That thanks for that great setup, Gerald. I mean, yeah, I mean Rick Carlisle is not a collaborative type of coach, is he? When
No,
when
as we
when
have found out.
when Bob was deciding, who should begin here, what rotations Rick was going to use. I mean, he was having none of it, and it just created it's almost like a usurping of power that Carlisle was seeing in the making, and he could do nothing to stop it. And like you said, Gerald, by the time he realized what was going on, the implosion had already been set in motion. And going forward now, it these past 2 years have been really interesting. Luka's had some success in the playoffs, and he's had, ultimate failure because he hasn't been able to just drag Dallas to the second round. And normally, if you're an NBA superstar, and normally when we consider you a top 5 player, you should just drag your team to at least the 6th seed in whatever conference you find yourself in.
Well, he
And
was they were the 5th seed or 4th seed, if I'm not mistaken.
They were
tied with the Lakers, but yes, they had a better, it worked out way in their favor. But
yeah.
let me ask you. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
No, go ahead. No, Gerald, I was just going to
Well, I wanted to ask you this. With the team as it is currently constructed, they didn't make a whole lot of maneuvers this offseason outside of signing Luka to that extension. Do you really see them going farther this year than they did last? Do you see them getting into that next round or more?
I think that in order for Luka to really have people believe in him as a superstar, Gerald, they're going to have to get past the first round. I believe.
Do you think they can?
No, not as currently, not the way that the roster is suited. I just think the West is too stacked, and like you said, they didn't really add any
outside
juice.
of Reggie Bullock.
Yeah,
they didn't.
And Bullock's a good player. He's a good 3-and-D player, but
right.
Is Porzingis going to be as bad as he was last year? I don't think so. I think the production is going to be there for him, but I don't see them having any juice, excuse me, or sandpaper, some rough and tumble guys to kind of show Luka how to lead through those mental hurdles, Gerald. I mean, it took Kobe and Shaq a couple times before they really they managed to break through. I don't see it right now. I think Dallas has to make another move or two in order to help Luka with off the ball coverage. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. He just ran out of gas. I mean, his usage rate is extremely high. And in order for them to get further, I just think you need somebody who can take some of the pressure off and be that release valve.
With Jamie, the issue of Porzingis is probably the most pressing thing for Dallas right now because they didn't make a lot of changes. They might during the course of the season, who knows, but Kristaps Porzingis did have a down year last year, especially on the defensive end where he was pretty much one of the worst defenders out there, which is kind of disappointing because of the fact that he can be a decent defender. And obviously at 7'3", he can go ahead and cover the back end, or at least he did in previous times. Your thoughts on Porzingis? Is he the key to Dallas this season? Not necessarily Luka. To me, it's more like Porzingis.
I would say it would be Porzingis and then the team defense in a close 1-2 for their success. If they can improve in any meaningful fashion as a team on the defensive end, and I think they kind of are trying to create that environment by bringing back like Willie Cauley-Stein, Dwight Powell, not guys who are like, at least they are, as Sean said, sandpaper guys. They've got some grit. They're not going to take pressure off of Luka, but they're going to, if they can form some sort of cohesive defensive identity, I think you'll see some moving up in the standings and the potential for them to move past the first round. But yeah, if Porzingis has another kind of middling year, and this is mostly, I mean, at this point, this is why they brought in Jason Kidd, right? To figure out how to help unlock that tandem. He just came from a dominant ball handler, kind of off ball scoring threat environment with LeBron and AD. Can he bring some of that to Dallas and find a way to, I feel like Carlisle basically stashed Porzingis on the 3-point line and was like, well, if you get the ball, shoot it. And that was how they used him. But at the end, now, whether that was Carlisle, whether that was Luka, whether that was, Porzingis maybe not feeling healthy and wanting to get down low, or a little bit of all three, which is probably the likely case. I don't know. But if Porzingis has another, I showed up year, Dallas won't get past the first round of the playoffs. They might have a higher seed. They might be like a 3-4 seed based on how tough the West is and how things break. But if he can't be a 2010 threat most nights, and as Sean said, at least the defender he was in New York. You can't just be like, oh, I watched him. He was there. I was there, but he was really more of it felt like as much of a spectator as a performer last season. Especially in the playoffs. So in a lot of ways, I think the most important player or the most important entity the Dallas Mavericks brought in was Jason Kidd, because if he can't unlock that tandem, then one of them's got to go. And that one of them is going to be Porzingis. And I mean, what do you get for it? At that point, you're going to have seen him not play well with one of the best passers in the game. So what do you say? Like, oh, we're going to build a team around Kristaps Porzingis? Nobody's going to do that. That ship sailed. So, Dallas is kind of in a pinch. I think Porzingis is under contract for 2 more seasons, right? Something like that.
Yes.
So, they got to figure out a way to make this work, because whoever you trade, you can't look at the Porzingis contract and go, well, at least it's expiring. We'll be able to rebuild our team next season and have some money to do it with. You've got to want to find somebody who wants to build a team around Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know what team that is. I'm not sure it exists. I mean, maybe Orlando, I guess, because they're just kind of a dumpster fire. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough slog for Dallas to get out of the first round unless Luka takes a meteoric leap or dedicated his offseason to conditioning to a degree we have yet to see. So that he comes into the season LeBron-like, with that level of fitness, which we've never seen. So I have a hard time believing that'll happen. Or can Porzingis be that release valve that I think Sean is right, that they need somebody has to be able to score 20 points per game and get some rebounds other than Luka.
Agreed. Now, without further ado, we go to Sacramento and the Sacramento Kings. And, well, I don't think we'll be able to avoid any Luke Walton jokes here, but I want to ask you this, Sean. I'll go right over to you. Once again, we're doing our NBA team previews. We're finishing them all off right here at the Lakers Fast Break. And Sacramento, I think that is a very good possibility that a playoff, right now, that they could find that playoff drought eradicated with a good performance this year. I think it's within the realm of possibility. I'm not 100% convinced on that. You'll have to find out on my NBA season preview where exactly I rank the Sacramento Kings. But when it concerns the Sacramento Kings, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. Sean, how are you thinking, especially that backcourt they've got right now? They've got 4 viable guards in that rotation and someone that Laker Tom is very much in love with in Davion Mitchell. I want to hear your thoughts on Sacramento's prospects this season.
Yeah, again, Gerald, great setup. That was really good. I think
you notice how I get Laker Tom in there as well. I know he's going to listen to us when he's out on his walk, so I just want to make sure he feels loved.
No, I mean, one of the 2 teams is going to take a leap this year only because it's bound to happen. It's either going to be Sacramento or Minnesota. So one of those teams in the West is going to do a lot better than what people expect. And if I had to choose between the 2, I'm with you, Gerald. I think it's the Kings. I do like their backcourt, although I really like the idea of Hallie and Fox more so than Mitchell. I think Mitchell would be the 3rd guy in that rotation.
Yeah, but you also they're going to have to play a lot of 3-guard rotations because they've also got Buddy Hield that they didn't get trade, that they didn't trade, that they didn't get rid of. So they've with Harrison Barnes and him, they've also got some very tradable assets as well.
Absolutely, they're very heavy in the backcourt. I believe they also still have Terrence Davis. So I mean,
Yep, and you saw how he did against the Lakers.
Right,
yeah.
he did well.
So I mean, you've got 5 really good players in the backcourt there, and you're right, Gerald. I think they can build enough of rotation in the front court to be competitive in most games. I could see them winning anywhere from as most as maybe 43 to 45 on the really high end. And I could see them getting in the play-in with 40 to 42 wins. So,
yeah, you could be right on that. You never know. I had my thoughts on them, Jamie. Well, the one thing though, when it comes to the defense of the Sacramento Kings, because statistically last year, and this is something that could be changing year by year by year, they statistically had the worst NBA defense of all time, which I'm sure Luke Walton wants to go ahead and put on his resume. But I want to ask you this, Jamie. That's something obviously it has to be the focus of. Do you think they can have enough defense? I'm not talking about a stellar defense. I'm not talking about even a top 10 defense. Can they get at least into the low 20s or the high teens to where they can utilize all those offensive skills that they already have? With the roster currently assembled.
Yeah, I think low 20s is a reasonable goal, but I think it's a tougher goal than it sounds like because they've got. I mean, I'm looking at this roster, and there's not the guy on this team that you look to as like, who's the jaded vet who has been all the way, in the battle to the playoffs and like gotten to the NBA finals or won an NBA finals even.
I wonder if Luke is just telling Davion Mitchell, can you play all 5 positions?
That's what I think he's saying. And you could, what? I mean, Sean was right. They have a 4-guard rotation, but if you had Harkless in there, you could really say that it's kind of a 5-guard. I mean, Harkless is only 6'7". He's not a big guy. He's like a stocky, sturdy guy, but he's not
Harkless is a good defender too, so maybe that'll help.
But that's the thing, right? You can't play all 5 of those guards. You're only going to, at best, get 3 on the court at the same time, along with 2 6'10", 6'12", 7-footed guys, right? So who's the odd 2 guards out? And all of them are going to want to play, and a lot of them are high draft picks. And Buddy Hield is getting paid. So, if you trade Barnes, you have to at least bring in a couple of guys of size. You can't go even smaller. So the Kings have to find. The Kings kind of have to hope the Wizards are bad early so that they can trade some of their smaller guys for some of the Wizards' slightly larger guys or something along those lines. They need some size and they need some defense. I don't really see an elite like shot blocking center. I mean, Tristan Thompson might have something left in the tank or something to prove. He is only 30. It seems like he's been in the league a lot longer, I guess, but if he's healthy, he could maybe be. I guess you could say Tristan Thompson is that guy who's been to the NBA Finals, been in the trenches all the way through. I don't know that he's like a locker room bonus, neutral, negative type of guy. I've never heard one way or the other. He always seems to kind of keep.
Jamie?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
He's here.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
good.
I don't know if Tristan Thompson is that guy who can help like bring some of these young guys into a mentality of a winning mentality, a defensive mentality.
Next team on our list is Minnesota, which you talked about in MagicMan. You talked about Sacramento or Minnesota being one of the surprise teams in the Western Conference. And for me, again, it's the same issue. A lot of nice offense, athleticism. They've got a lot of things to look forward to in Minnesota. One of the things that they don't right now is defense. It's where this could be a team that could actually be worse on the defensive end than Sacramento right now because Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, it's not a great defensive team. It's not something that you're going to roll out there and you're going to be able to stop, but they can score. That's something they're going to be able to do. I want to hear your thoughts on Minnesota. Their team, after all the front office fiasco that they had just a short time ago, looks to be on still a little bit better path, but how far north do you think it will go?
Yeah, you know what, Gerald? I think the best they could hope for is possibly being in the play-in. I don't see them being competitive enough defensively to be a top 6 seed at all. Some shocking things would have to happen in order for that to happen, and they would have to get lucky themselves with being relatively healthy. And how often does a NBA team go through an 82 game season fully healthy? I don't think I've ever heard of one. So I think their best bet is to possibly be like a 9th or 10th seed in the play-in, or their worst is, man, they're back in the lottery. And it was like that Game of Zones where Kevin Love is whining to Steph Curry about the playoffs aren't a gift you get each year, and you're stuck in Minnesota praying for ping pong balls for the rest of your career.
Oh man, that's
Way to bring
hard.
it back. Way to bring it back.
Yeah.
Jamie, I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
When it comes to Minnesota, your thoughts on them? I mean, this is a team on the come. This is a team on the up. When they say it as far as here in Vegas at the craps table, I want to hear your thoughts that I think that this is a team that has some growth in it, and you will find some this year. How much? I'm not that sure.
I'm not that sure either. I mean, this is one of those teams where you kind of have to really start from the top of the organization.
One of those mystery teams that MagicMan was talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not. This organization has been a dumpster fire pretty much since Kevin Garnett left. They've never seemingly recovered from that trade. They've just been terrible ever since. I don't expect Karl Anthony Towns to stay a Minnesota Timberwolf for the duration of the season. I think at some point he will be traded. I think that this team has to decide what it wants to do. And let's be honest, they've gone through a lot of weird organizational issues. Their coach, Flip Saunders passed his coaching mantle onto his son, who then got fired. And then, the owner doesn't seem to communicate with the star player. The star player has been through, a year of hell, and seems like, Karl Anthony Towns just reminds me of one of those guys that just needs a change of scenery at this point. I don't see him and maybe he and D'Angelo Russell, come out of the gates on fire and they both stay healthy for 70, 74 games this season. And, they make a 10-game win leap, right? They win 10 more games than they won last year, which is still not the playoffs, but would be a significant improvement. That's not going to make anybody. That's not going to keep Karl Anthony Towns in a positive state of mind. I mean, this guy, if you watched his press conference at the beginning of the season, he already looks done. He already looks done with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like, everything about his body language, all of the words that are coming out of him none of them are like supportive or positive or even like, engaged. He's been kind of through a lot. So it really would probably be in their best interest to, if they do start hot, to consider moving some of the pieces that are movable and go into full rebuild mode from scratch. That, or they need to, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, they need to hire Mike D'Antoni to unlock the offense, because they're not going to play. This is a team that's not going to play a lot of defense. It's just not. There's nobody on the roster. Patrick Beverley will play some defense and piss everybody off. So, you got to bring in somebody who's just going to unlock the best scoring aspects of this team if you want to have any kind of shot at even challenging for a playoff spot. But honestly, I don't see anything on this roster other than Karl Anthony Towns, and D'Angelo Russell when he's healthy and engaged, and that is going to push this team forward. They have such a mismatch. It's just such a weird collection of toys they have on this roster. I don't see, I just don't see a strategy, I don't see a strategy. So I won't be surprised if Cat demands a mid-season trade, if they start, 2-9 or, something like that.
Next team on the list is another team that could be on the rise. I think they had a really good draft. I don't know if it's going to show out that way, but I really think they had a good draft, along with someone who I think is a very good prospect for the NBA Rookie of the Year, and that's Houston, the Houston Rockets. So, Sean, I wanted to ask you this. in Houston, it's not obviously right now about wins and losses. You know, there are going to be one of those teams at the bottom of the NBA. That's pretty much been a given. But with what's going on there, I still see a brighter future for them because I think that's what everybody's looking right now. They see the fact that they think that they had a good NBA draft. They think with the 4 individuals that they bring in, plus all the young talent that they have there, that yes, maybe it's not a now, but maybe it's a not too bad in the distant future coming very soon.
Yeah, Gerald, I thought they did have a good draft. I do like Jalen Green. I think his game translates well to the NBA.
I think so many people are in love with Alperen Şengün. I think they're going to be really pleasantly surprised by him.
I think them trading for Daniel Tice was a great move too. That's another big body that won't get in the way of Jalen Green and he'll be able to run pick and rolls with Christian Wood effectively, I believe. And you know, I got to be honest, Gerald. I think Christian Wood might have a great season and be an all-star on a really bad team. I think he has the potential to do that. I think he'll
have the numbers, but if he's on a really bad team, they won't give him the spot.
Well, you know something. If the fans and the players made Ben Simmons an all-star last season, and Christian Wood puts up the numbers he does, I would argue Wood belongs on the NBA All-Star team. He's not afraid to shoot.
You don't have to preach it to me. Remember, I was first on that Christian Wood bandwagon before anybody that was out there.
Absolutely.
When I had that mega trade that I will always remind Laker Tom of. But then,
ultimately, Gerald, I think the diamond in the rough that Houston really needs to see is Kevin Porter Jr. He had an incredible comeback with Houston. He came from a really bad situation in Cleveland. He did suffer a car accident that, thank God, it didn't take his life, but it was a bad situation. He got out of there, and I'm just not sure if he's a point guard in the NBA or not. I know that's kind of where Houston is going to slot him, playing with Jalen Green and Christian Wood.
But he has much more of a scoring mentality.
Yeah,
he scored
does.
50 points in one game last year.
Right. So like you said, Gerald, it's really going to be a developing year for Houston. We're going to see how they can figure out to unlock those 3 to their maximum potential and figure out what they need to put around them.
Jamie, your thoughts on the Houston Rockets? Do you think that, like many people out there, that this is a team that's not for now, but for later?
This is a team for later. They still are. If Christian Wood he's had a hard time staying healthy. So it kind of comes down to, can he stay on the floor? And then also, what kind of synergy does he have with this vast number of guards? This is another team that's like so guard heavy. I don't see how some of these guys are going to see time. Like, you're not going to not play Eric Gordon, right? So Eric Gordon's going to be playing for, 20 to 25 minutes a game. So right away, that's going to affect. I mean, Eric Gordon probably is the number one guy you try to trade. You try to trade him to a contender.
Problem is he still has 2+ years beyond year on his contract.
And you'll talk about a guy who has a hard time staying on the floor. So no, but the most tradable contract they have is the most hardest probably contract for them to trade, because he's also kind of getting up there in years for a guard, and he's never been healthy.
Great on the Lakers.
No, jeez Louise, no.
3-pointer who can play defense?
Does he play defense?
Yeah,
he did.
It's decent.
Does he play? All right, I'll say this: he plays better defense than Wayne Ellington does. So if we could trade Wayne Ellington for Eric Gordon, I think I'd be.
I'm zipping my lip on that one.
Yeah. Anyway, point being, I kind of see this team. So, we talk about what identity, Minnesota is in theory built around Karl Anthony Towns, although they don't talk to their superstar about things. So that's always funny to me. And then this is a team that's obviously built around, kind of a gritty post presence, but, focused on guard forward scoring, a more modern approach to basketball. So we're talking about 2 bottom feeding polar opposite teams, and it'll be interesting to see which of these 2 teams does better in the standings this season, and how that's related to health, of course. Let's just assume that both teams are relatively healthy. Which team is going to, punch past 20, maybe even 30 games and which team is only going to win 20, 15, a handful of games. So that's sort of the only interesting thing about these guys. I don't see Houston as, challenging even for a play-in spot. If they do, that means one of these guys, that means either John Wall has recaptured some of his old glory and is, dishing and scoring the way he was a few years ago in Washington, which is entirely possible. He's had kind of a year to play on the court and rehab a little bit on the court and a whole off season of relative health, I think. So he could be poised for a resurgence. But again, then you try to package that to like a contending team, and depending on how it all shakes out in Houston, in Philly, you start looking at teams like Philly and Minnesota, where there's, disgruntled high contract players under contract for a while that you can just swap. You can be like, look, let's just see how this works. One of us is going to be stuck with these guys for a couple more seasons. Let's just see if a change of scenery does one of these guys well.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But again, this is a team I think that is a couple years away, but still a lot of things to look forward to with them. Next up on the list is Pheonix. Pheonix Suns, who made it all the way to the NBA Finals. Chris Paul signed a contract extension that's going to take him till he's even older than he is now. Let's put it that way. But there's still a lot to look forward to in Phoenix. They do have a nice roster. They did add some sprinkles around the edges. They extended Mikal Bridges today to a 4-year, $90 million deal. Still have got the Deandre Ayton extension that they have to worry or think about because he wants a full max, and they're going back and forth on that. They still, as of now, there's a deadline, and I know that they haven't met it yet. So, Sean, I want to ask you on Phoenix, with all that said and done, not a lot of people are picking them to go back to the finals. Not a lot of people are picking them to go make it as far as they once did or being as successful as they once did, although they still think of them as a very strong team in the Western Conference.
Absolutely, Gerald. I really do think they're good enough to get to the second round. I think they have enough of they have the mix of scorers, shooters, defenders. They have grit. They have sandpaper. Monty Williams, I would say, is a top 10 coach in the NBA. Their front office is stable for the first time that we could say since I don't know when. I can't remember. Like 2005, 6. That it's been that long since a front office had this kind of stability. So I think they have a good enough roster to get to the second round. I think they could even get to conference finals depending on the way things shake out. I still don't think they're good enough to get back to the finals. I don't think their win total is going to be as high as it was last year because, let's be honest, even last year, people were still wondering, well, are they this good? Are they this talented? And I think a lot of people just let their foot off the gas when they were playing them and didn't realize how effective they were as a unit. And I don't think they're going to be sneaking up on people this year, but I still see them as at least a top 6 seed in the West, barring injury.
What about you, Jamie? When it comes to the Phoenix Suns, I mean, do you see last season as a fluke, like a lot of people do? Although, again, I think they are a very solid team. I thought they took advantage of the situation. Sure. Do I think the Lakers would have beaten them with a healthy team? They were leading them, and they weren't a healthy team.
Right.
And they should have won that series. But again, I think they're a very competitive team. But again, they have to be still pretty much healthy, and that's going to be a tough thing to ask 2 seasons in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially from Chris Paul, who has a tendency to take, to get banged up pretty easily. And and I'm trying to find his age at 36. He's definitely, but
he's on contract for 2-3 more years.
Yeah, he's basically going to finish. I can't have a hard time. I mean, unless he demands a trade, I guess, but I have a hard time not see him finishing his career as a Sun at this point. I don't think last season was as fluky as a lot of people thought it was. The same way I didn't think Miami's season 2 seasons ago was as fluky as I thought it was. And people be like, "Oh, look how terrible Miami was last year." They had the same problem we had: short turnaround, tons of injuries, tons of COVID issues. Like, they never played. They had the same issue we had. The whole team barely played together, and when it just never came together the way it did the season before, and that was that. So I'm kind of expecting a similar bounce back season from Miami as I am from us. In terms of the Suns, I think that they added really good pieces. They added JaVale McGee so that, like, if Deandre Ayton's, step forward ends up being a plateau, or, even he takes a little step back, they've got like some kind of solid defensive presence in the center that they can rely on defense, and you can finish lobs and things like that. He's certainly not as dynamic a center as Deandre Ayton is. But they've got, he's a great placeholder center for a good offensive system around him. I'm a huge Devin Booker fan. I think Devin Booker's probably still got another level to hit as a player. I don't know if that's a level he can hit with Chris Paul on the team, though, is sort of where I'm at, because Chris Paul is a very ball dominant point guard. And, you look at some of the great dynamic scorers, they had point guards who were complementary to their scoring and their ability to dominate the ball. Kobe with Derek Fisher, Michael Jordan with little Stevie Kerr and John Paxson, so on and so forth, things of that nature. Chris Paul is a little more of a Magic Johnson in that he is the one with the ball in his hands. He is the one orchestrating everything. And, Devin Booker gets to do a little something on the side. So that extension for that long to Chris Paul was kind of curious to me. I'm assuming that Devin Booker was in on that conversation. One thing you can say outside of the DeAndre Ayton extension is that Robert Sarver is starting to ditch his reputation as an owner who pinches pennies. He certainly, is spending some money this season on a team that did well. And so I think that's the best you can do as an owner. You can be like, well, this bunch of guys did pretty well. They all want to stay. I'm not sure what the holdup with DeAndre Ayton is, other than maybe he's insisting on a max, and I don't know what their counter position is. That to me is, to be honest, a little mystifying, because he was such a huge part of why they did so well last season in the playoffs.
It's even more. Oh, sorry, Jamie. I was going to say his transformation last year was even more remarkable to me, because think about his situation in Arizona with Sean Miller. It was almost like Sean Miller was so focused on the FBI breathing down his neck that they really didn't take the time to truly develop Ayton to have secondary and tertiary scoring ability. And I'm sorry to say that, but I mean, Sean, it is what it is with Sean Miller in Arizona. Right. But I just think I'm just perplexed as you about why Ayton isn't being re-upped right now.
It's astounding to me. I mean, they brought everybody else back: Mikal Bridges, Cameron Payne. Extended CP3. It looks to me as if they're almost, because they brought in McGee, they brought in Kaminsky, although I think, wasn't he a waiver wire pickup last year? He was on the team last year, right? Kaminsky?
Yeah, I think he was.
So, but they kept him around. Obviously Crowder is a excellent piece for them to have. They've still got
Saric is a good player.
Saric is a good player too. I always can't. I was struggling with how to pronounce.
But
I wanted
he's
to
coming
say
off a knee injury, so he's not going to be there and ready for the start of the season.
Right.
And they brought in Elfrid Payton, I believe, right? And wasn't he, or was, and that was, so they've really got a stable team, and and that's key. The Ayton situation is going to hang over the season, and it's mystifying to me that they would want to inflict that on this roster, because it really is built for the playoffs. And it's not like let's say you max out DeAndre Ayton and it's not working out, you can trade him. He had a good enough playoffs. He's a good enough player. He's a number 1 draft pick. You will find somebody who's willing to say, we could use this guy, and take whoever. Karl Anthony Towns or whatever, right? Like, or Buddy Hield and 2 guards from Sacramento. You will find somebody to take that deal. So from all points of view, that aspect of this offseason is the only part of me that's a little bit of a head scratcher. So other than that, I see them as a solid 3-4 seed, or higher if things break really well their way. Book's coming off a great Olympics, NBA Finals appearance, and took a big step forward last season. I expect him to take another big step forward season. And maybe they're looking at Chris Paul as like, hey, dude, every year you're going to get the ball 10% less, right? Like 10% more to Book. You do a little bit less and hit some threes like late career Steve Nash. I don't think that's in Chris Paul's DNA, but I didn't think it was in Steve Nash's DNA until he was on the Lakers and sitting in the corner hitting spot up threes off of Kobe drives. So, it all depends on what the buy-in is from everybody, and that team seems to be pretty bought into itself, which is a huge part of any team's success in any sport.
Well, we'll see what happens with Pheonix, but there are more great previews up ahead. Once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break. I'm here with the Lakerholics, Jamie Sweet and Sean Grice, aka MagicMan. Next up on the list is a team that surprised many individuals last year, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant, who's a budding superstar. His time could be now. The only thing is, it was kind of weird, the mixed signals I think the team sent out in regards to his offseason transactions. And instead of really 100% getting behind and building a foundation with Ja, or around Ja, I should say, I was kind of perplexed by what they did. Sean, do you still think, even with all the changes that were made in Memphis around Ja, that Ja could go ahead and achieve that same kind of success for Memphis this season?
Yes and no, Gerald. Yes, because of Ja Morant. I mean, he is a top 3 competitive player in the NBA. He wants it. He wants the ball. He wants to take the shot. He wants to win the game. He wants to get the steal. He wants to get this. Like, you can't teach that. And so I think he's just going to will Memphis to a lot of games that they're going to win that they probably shouldn't, just because of off his compete level. I'm with you. I wasn't a fan of the moves. I thought, is this team taking one step backwards right now so they can take 2 step forwards in the future? I mean, Zaire is a great draft pick, but he's not ready to go right now. And I don't think. Do you, Gerald?
No. I know Raphael is still not exactly in love with the Zaire pick. And I know that he's a development in process. We'll see what happens, but he is a couple years away.
I wasn't a huge fan of the Valanciunas for Adams move. I thought
neither was I.
I thought JV and Ja had really great chemistry, and I thought that, as far as I know, JV is like beloved in the locker room. He's a great locker room guy. He's easy to get along with. He usually doesn't mess up on the court in the low post. He's a force down there. He loves coming up in picks. I mean, he's willing to take threes at this point. So it was a perplexing move to me. Adams is a good pickup, but I'm still confused about what they were trying to accomplish there. I see them as top end right now. I think they're a play-in team, and I think low end they're maybe a mid-lottery pick. They're not going to be really bad. Ja won't let that happen.
Another one of the teams in the Western Conference that did much better than the Memphis Grizzlies last season was the Utah Jazz, which finished number 1, best record overall in the Western Conference, had the best point differential, and they were so good from the three-point area as far as making the most threes with a great percentage. Jamie, I'm going to start with you when it comes to Utah. Things that you see from them, do you see them achieving that same kind of success? They did make some additions around the fringes with Rudy Gay and things of that nature that really may help them shore up some things that they couldn't do last season. But I know that there's still questions about as far as the playoffs are concerned, because if you want to keep Rudy Gobert out there, you saw the 5-out situation that they could not really defend that well against the Clippers, and the Clippers really took them to town. But your thoughts on the Utah Jazz prospects this season, because they're still thought of as a top team and even a finals team by some individuals.
Yeah, I think that the Jazz are going to have to the playoff defense of the Jazz is the last. It's the last little piece of the puzzle that's missing for them. One quick thing on Memphis, just not to derail this, but
Oh no, you're good.
I think that I completely agree with Sean that the Valanciunas for Adams trade was completely perplexing. But also, I think that in their minds they were bringing in more defense, and they had seen like how well Adams and Russell Westbrook ran the pick and roll in OKC, and we're thinking like, well, maybe we can recreate that with Ja. But I think that Valanciunas can do the same thing with pick and pops, and like slide overs and hitting open threes or finishing. Like he can score from all over the court, and he's one of those guys who's been traded like 3 times, and I'm always kind of mystified by it because he's a really good center. He's got all sorts of skills, and he's always kind of undervalued, I feel like, on the teams that he's on. But to go back to Utah, Sean's right. Ja is one of the top 3 has the top 3 competitive fire burning within him players in the NBA. I'm a huge Ja Morant fan as well. But yeah, if Utah can figure out how to defend floor spreads in the playoffs with or without Gobert on the floor, they have a great chance of winning the first NBA Finals in team history. If they can't, they might have to look at moving on from Gobert. And again, we're talking about a guy who's under contract for I think like 3 more seasons, maybe 4.
I think it's 4.
4.
Yeah, he's there for a while. So again, there's a lot of like players on teams, and when you look at some of these rosters, like I was looking at Memphis's roster. There's not a guy over 7 foot. They're young and small, but they feel like they're better equipped to defend like a team like the Clippers than Utah is, which has got like what you would consider to be a traditional NBA lineup with a big shot blocking center in the middle. But in the playoffs, teams like punish your weaknesses, and Gobert is, for as good as he is in the paint, as great as he is at altering and blocking shots at the rim, he is terrible on the perimeter and susceptible to pick and roll destruction. And that's I feel like they're kind of at a rubber meets the road moment as a franchise. Gobert has kind of 2 strikes on him, right? He has I can't defend pick and rolls on the perimeter in the playoffs. I got into it with Donovan Mitchell over COVID and other things, and what's the thing that's going to keep him here other than Quinn Snyder really likes him, I guess. He's one of the guys who I could see again, if Karl Anthony Towns to me is one of the bigger not talked about, and it's just because Minnesota is terrible. But like what he decides to do this season, if anything, is kind of to me one of the more interesting or compelling plot lines of this season that isn't Laker related. And I wouldn't have said that except for then when I watched his presser for the season, he just almost was like making a trade demand. Then I felt like right there on the like, I don't want to play here anymore. This has been bad here. I don't enjoy it, and I want to leave. It was everything that's so. I could see them trying to like move him to Utah and bring in a defensive player to Minnesota. I don't know. I don't see the Jazz the way they currently play as being an NBA Finals team. I think they have the talent to do it. I think that Quinn Snyder has the offensive chops to do it, but I mean, like you said, it's going to come down to 3-point defense, and in the playoffs, all you need is a guy who is a little bit faster than Gobert or can jump a little bit higher than he can close out, like Paul George, like lots of guys like Jay Crowder, like lots of guys in the NBA, and they're going to abuse him. They're going to abuse him, and there won't be anything that the Jazz can do except take Gobert off the floor, and then they're going to drive into the paint and score on you then. So, yeah, I don't know what you do. And the problem, again, with Gobert is that once you get into that situation, is he going to be able to score enough to offset those point losses on the other end? And he can't. So that's a big problem, I think, for Utah. But other than that, they're solid. They've got a great backcourt. They've got a great bench. They've got solid pieces to play on both sides of the floor. on the forward side of things. Yeah, the fact that they have so much invested in Gobert is really the only kind of puzzling thing at this point. And maybe a reason to give the Pheonix organization kudos for being hesitant to invest so much in Ayton, right? Like, look at other max centers. The center position is kind of vulnerable in the NBA right now. It doesn't have a great role in the NBA right now. You can kind of get a center at the veteran minimum who can do most of the things your superstar takes up a huge chunk of your cap resources can do. And that's an interesting choice that you have to make at this point in the NBA.
Well, we'll see what happens with them if they can be still the number one team in the Western Conference. We'll see how that pans itself out. But we have more Western Conference teams to go ahead and cover before we head on to the Eastern Conference. 2 more, and we'll save the worst for last. But we'll hit with New Orleans now, a team that made a lot of moves. I don't know if you consider it lateral, but I think a lot of pressure is on GM David Griffin, or president of basketball operations, David Griffin, because he's made a lot of changes within the team since he started there, and none of them have really panned out. The team has not found success. I know that Zion, it was announced at training camp that he had magically gotten an injury during the course of the summer, which nobody knew about, and he had surgery on it.
Right.
And it said David Griffin said he was going to be ready for the season, though, so don't worry about it. But unfortunately, as we're heading close to the season, we found out he's not even walking yet. I know that Raphael and I and other individuals out there have seen the pictures that he looks like he's a little bit he's carrying a little bit more weight than he was even doing last year. So it's going to take him even more time to get back into shape, which again, with his body type is always going to be an issue because of the fact that he could be more susceptible to injuries. I really feel for the kid because he's really so talented, and that team, if he gets a chance to play a full 82-game season, is competitive with anybody out there. But Sean, your thoughts on the prospects for New Orleans, despite all that, and despite the late arrival of Zion sometime maybe November or even December, now it's looking, is there still a chance that New Orleans can even get into a playoff scenario type format?
I don't think so, Gerald. As I was doing research, I was thinking what the Podfather would say in this situation, and landmines came to mind. I think there are just so many landmines with this franchise, and all Griff needs to do is step on one of them, and it's over. They could get off to a horrendous start here, Gerald. It could be a 1-10, a 2-12 start for them.
And the team has talent. That's the problem.
That's what they are. So on the list of confusing teams, they were number 2 for me because you're right. They do have talent. When I look at the roster, they have enough talent to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That is a playoff roster. But will it translate? I don't think so.
And that's part of the problem because they have all this talent, young talent. They've got Ingram, Ball. You got Walker. You've got Kira Lewis Jr., who I really like.
Jackson
You've got all
Hayes is a great player.
Exactly. Devontae Graham, who you just brought over.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these great individuals that are there. Jonas Valanciunas. They got a lot of talent, Jamie. But in the end, does it all mesh and does it all fit? It didn't last year. Will it this year?
I mean, I'm a huge Brandon Ingram and I'm a huge Josh Hart fan because of their time with the Lakers. So it pains me to say this, but no, I don't. I think that they are going to end up probably a lottery team this year. I don't see this team. This team is. It's so weird because David Griffin had such success building around LeBron. You would think like, oh, well, here's another guy kind of like LeBron. Like he's, a big brute guy who you can't stop from getting into the paint. And when he gets into the paint, you can't stop him from scoring. And he likes to pass the ball. I mean, maybe not to the degree that LeBron or the skill or ability that LeBron has, but, he's not like, give me the ball and it's mine. He's like a team guy. So you would think that there would be some sort of ability to replicate that success. But it almost looks as if they've built the team for Zion not to play, right? You've got like Valanciunas, who's their starting center, I'm assuming, right? So that means at most Zion at 6'7" and 284, which is probably being generous, right? He's probably a little higher than 284. Which, when you brought up the point of, is he going to be, foot injuries already, right? Like, this is weight distribution. This is, the body is not able to, I mean, if he was like working at, Walmart or, CVS or whatever, you wouldn't worry about the body weight distribution, but he's trying to complete complex spin moves with the basketball and then leap into the air and dunk. So it's a whole different, journey that his body and the amount of weight that he carries. And of all the players that I know, he's the only one that I've consistently feel like needs to drop 10 pounds, no matter when I see him, even like midway through like a playing season. I'm like, that guy would really be another step forward if he could figure out a way to lose like 5-10 more pounds.
I would say more personally. I think,
but I'm trying to be realistic, right? I'm trying to be realistic.
For his long-term health, I think.
Especially for his knees, ankles, and feet.
So when Chuck came into the league, he was around 285.
But Chuck's taller than 6'7", isn't he? Isn't he like 6'9"?
No, he was 6'4".
Yeah, Chuck was smaller.
They always called him 6'6", but he was 6'4".
6'4", yeah, he was.
Right.
But when he finally hashed it out with Moses Malone, and he listened to what Moses told him, he said, "You're fat and you're lazy," and he lost about, like Gerald said, he lost about 35 pounds. He got to about 250, and he became a monster. I think
Zion could do that.
I think if Zion went down to 250, there'd be no stopping him.
If he could do that, he would be exactly, and that's part of his problem, right? And that's going to be part of the Pelicans' problem, is they're kind of over a barrel. Like, they want to keep Zion, so they don't want to tell him, you're fat and you're lazy, right?
Right. They don't want to be like the Blue Jays telling Vlad Guerrero, "You're fat and you're lazy."
Landmine number 1 is don't piss off Zion.
Yeah.
So landmine number 2 is with Stan Van Gundy, you had like at least a coach that had been to the end. Now they've got like a rookie coach. This whole organization just seemed like that's landmine number 2, right? Rookie coach who, what is he going to tell Zion, right? Oh, hey, by the way, I've never done this before, so can you do all these things I really think are going to be great? NBA players sometimes respond well to that. Most often they don't. And then Brandon Ingram seems to really like playing in New Orleans, so I feel like he's like, yo, man, whatever. So in a way, this season comes down to how good can Brandon Ingram be, and can he do it consistently? If he's an all-star again, and maybe Valanciunas plays like he did in Toronto a few years back, where he was like a consistent 2010 threat, I could see this team making believers out of doubters and like competing at least for a play-in spot. And then if Zion gets healthy and plays specifically power forward and finds a way to fit in amongst Ingram, Valanciunas, and whoever else takes a step up on this team, which after that, you're kind of, Devontae Graham is obviously the name that jumps out. You would like to think Josh Hart could, but he, if he plays so hard and with such a ferocity that he consistently is hurt, especially because of how, like, the way he plays defense, which you like, but then, thumb injury, ankle injury, knee injury, eventually those things add up. So I think this team is going to have a hard time competing for a playoff spot. But if Ingram and Valanciunas can find a way to make some magic together to the tune of they both are looking the best that they've ever looked, or in Valanciunas' case, at least as good as he looked in Toronto, they could surprise some people. But the West is so loaded. It's going to be so hard. There's already some of the teams we've talked about who are at least look on paper as good as them. It's all going to come down to Zion. And if he's already got one foot out the door and he's leaning towards New York because it's the market that he wants to play in, I just don't see it happening.
Last team on the list for the Western Conference. OKC and their 500 draft picks that they have over the course of the next 5 years. Actually, just a little bit less, but not by much. They've got a lot of youth there, and they've got they're a place that teams can always send their overpaid players left to die, seemingly. But regardless of that, there is a great player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that's there that eventually they need to build around.
Yeah.
I do love Pokashevsky, I'm going to say it right now. I'm a big Pokashevsky fan. I'm really hoping he'll succeed, even though he does need to go to a Las Vegas buffet now and then. Sean, I wanted to ask you because he's still I think under 200 pounds, and he's a
they have him listed at 190. They have him listed at
yeah,
190.
that's tough. But Sean, I want to ask you this.
Visit the Rio World
he has
Buffet.
No conscience. See, Laker Tom would like him because he has no conscience. Absolutely none. But Sean, I wanted to go ahead and hear your thoughts. I mean, obviously they're really vying hard for a lottery pick, a high lottery pick, a number one pick. Their odds are they're going to try hard to outdo Orlando for who loses the most games. But your thoughts on them? I think they're in a better spot right now than Orlando. I think they've got, obviously, with a ton of picks that they have, but I think with the kind of young players that they have, I think the future's just a little bit brighter than what it is in Orlando.
I think you're right, Gerald. I think that's true. Hopefully this year, Presti doesn't try and shake the tree of the gods. The Clippers and the Thunder both played with the fire of the gods during that last game. That was ridiculous. The Clippers, we know what happened with them, and the Thunder didn't end up with the lottery pick that they wanted. So I think that was the basketball gods letting them know where that stood. But Josh Giddey is a good player. He's going to – I'm not sure if he's the right guy you want to put beside Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, though. I have to see that to believe it. It looks to me like Giddey wants to be a ball-dominant point guard in the NBA.
Well, he certainly looks good so far in the exhibition season.
So one thing that the Thunder really have going for them is they do have a top 5 shot creator under 25. I mean, it's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, and Ben Simmons. Those are the 4 guys who can create for others, and LeBron. We have to include LeBron in that.
But he's not under 25.
But he's not under 25. No.
He might think he is.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. But I'm just wondering, Gerald, do you think maybe Shea Gilgeous-Alexander will come down with a bad case of plantar fasciitis like he did
if he gets hangnail, they're going to sit him out for 5 games. Sam Presti will personally sit him out for 5 games. Yeah, that's going to be a scenario. If he has any type of injury, they're going to hold him out longer. We know that. The only thing I say, Jamie Sweet, as I turn over to you is with Oklahoma, they don't want to. They want to sit down with SGA. Hopefully, they've had this conversation on where they want to go, what they're going to do with him. And hopefully that SGA is cool with it, because at some point in time, if this team gets anywhere near a semblance of good or even decent, you've got a ton of draft picks still by that time you can trade out for quality players. And at some point in time, you're going to have to send the message to SGA that we're going to build around you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a team with 6 rookies.
I didn't say now, and I think SGA understands that now. I just think at some point in time, SGA is going to say, you know what, you need to start going in a different direction.
This is only his 3rd year in the season in the NBA, so I could see him being a little bit patient. I don't know that that's going to translate into the tune of 2-3 years down the line. Most professional athletes aren't wired that way to be like, oh, 3 years from now, we're going to be pretty good. Awesome. Let me work really hard for you. It just doesn't work like that in the NBA. They want to win. So will he be patient for, let's say, half the season? Maybe. Will he be patient for, 2 years out? I have a hard time buying that. And that's what I go back to. There's 6 rookies on the team. OKC is a small market team. They're not going to, they're not going to go over the cap. They're not going to bring in a bunch of contracts this season to try and win now. That's not the plan, obviously. This is the only other team that I every year, Sam Presti seems to get 72 draft picks. And I'm starting to think what are you going to do with these? What? It's like a gun collector. I have 272 guns at my house. Well, that's cool. You're only ever going to be able to shoot at most 2 at one time. So what are the other 274? You know what I mean?
So here's
I don't understand I don't see what the process is. Sorry, Sean.
So here's the idea, Jamie, and he's kind of adopted this from Maury in Houston. The idea is that NBA draft picks are like in the major league, there's 60 rounds, right?
Right.
So Maury wrote a piece once where he described the baseball draft as like it's like fishing for salmon in the ocean. There's so many of them that
Sure.
you're eventually going to catch 2 or 3 that are just above and beyond.
Right.
So the same idea Presti has, if he acquires more draft picks and gets more scratch tickets, it's more likely he's eventually going to hit on one. That's the only reason you can come up with is mathematically he thinks there's a probability that he's going to get a generational superstar because he did it before. He thinks he can do it again. And why wouldn't anybody doubt him?
Sure. I mean that's valid. That's valid. I don't know. I don't know what this team is trying to build toward. I mean, they got their 2 oldest players are this, and I saw this and I had to read it twice. But Derek Favors, who's been in the league for 11 years, and incredibly, the Moose, Mike Muscala, is the other veteran right, they're both the veteran presences on this team, right? Favors and Muscala. So there's no, I don't know, like. I guess if there's a team out there that wants, I guess that like the way I look at OKC at this point is they're like the Union Station where they're looking for this player or that player to come in and hey, here, take a draft pick and we'll that's how they're going to function for the next few seasons. Because I can't see them using all of these picks on this team. It just doesn't make sense to me how you could. What are you building at that point? You're just building like you're basically building a AAA team, right? If to bring the baseball analysis back into it, like you're building a team like a G League team in the NBA.
Right. He's also betting that Miami or the Clippers have a really bad season down the road here, and he's probably right about that too because he owns their draft picks for the next 10 years.
That's true. I mean, I don't see that happening in either case, though. Paul, they're all both too good. So they're going to get, they're all going to be like, 8, 7, 10, maybe 5. If the balls bounce exactly your way one season, oh, look, you got a 2 or 3. I don't know. Whenever teams get into this mode, I feel like they get like tunnel vision on a strategy and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if Sam Presti will be around long enough to use all of these draft picks.
Who knows, indeed, but there's going to have to do something with them at some point. But SGA, you better be patient now because it's going to be a tough road ahead. But We'll see what happens with OKC. Once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break. It's our NBA team previews. We're finishing them all off on this episode, what we didn't cover already. If you have any questions for us, at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com, and of course, Lakerholics.com for the greatest information that you can find on anything Lakers. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. We're going to go ahead and do rapid fire on the Eastern Conference, starting with Lakers East, and that is the Washington Wizards. I kid when I say that, but
you shouldn't.
Really.
It's true.
It's true. It's true.
It's where Lakers who aren't Lakers go to play.
Yes. Sean, I wanted to ask you this, starting with the Washington Wizards. It is Bradley Beal playing with a lot of veterans, a lot of parts that could be great on other teams as complementary players. Do you think that's going to add up to a season where they can make the playoffs once again?
I think it's possible, Gerald. I've watched them a little bit this preseason. Spencer Dinwiddie looks like he's back to full form, which is fantastic for them. It just seems like the injury bug just hits this team at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they never seem to be able to get over that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year, but I think they're at the bottom of a play-in position. I think they're going to challenge for 8, 9, 10, 11. I think they'll be in that range. It's possible they could sneak up on people and become a 6 seed, but I think that's very unlikely. There needs to be a few injuries in the Eastern Conference for that to happen and for them to remain relatively healthy. So I think they're definitely a play-in team. I would slot them as a play-in team right now, not necessarily a playoff team.
Jamie, your thoughts on the Washington Wizards?
I'm about the same. I mean, this is a team built to play small ball. There's not a guy over 6'11" on the roster, or over 6'10" rather on the roster. Um, incredibly, KCP is probably going to back up Dinwiddie or Beal, rather. So they got a deep bench kind of when it comes to their guards. And I could see Kuzma having a breakout season. So I could see them actually slipping into the 8th seed if Charlotte or one of those other kind of teams that had a big season last year that sort of surprised takes a step back. A lot of this, like Sean hit it on the head. If this team can stay healthy and like build something throughout the season, I think they'll be more of a playoff threat than they are on paper now. Because I look at this team and say like, well, Bryant's always hurt, Beal's always good to miss 20 games. And on down the line, I forget how many games Hachimura lost last year, but all the key guys are the ones that seem to get like the nagging or lingering injuries that like keep them out for like a third or more of the season. And then it's hard to build a playoff roster around those kind of injuries. So I think Sean hit it on the head. If this team can stay healthy, I think they'll be a bigger threat than maybe they're considered to be right now.
Next team on the list is going to be a team that is, I don't know, just a lot of mismatched parts that I think is going to end up being in a season that unfortunately people will soon forget. And that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, team that has not fully recovered from the second departure of LeBron James. Your thoughts, Magic Man, on the Cleveland Cavs? I do like Evan Mobley. I do not know how he's going to fit with this team because ultimately I think he's playing out of position and eventually he's going to be moved or has to be moved, I think, into the center position. But right now, he might even be playing a power forward, even maybe a small forward at times if they put Lauri Markkanen into there along with Jared Allen. And, of course, they've got the Sexland backcourt, which it just does not seem to be meshing 100%. So I want to hear your thoughts on the prospect for Cleveland. They don't have much in the way of wings. This team does not look like it's going to be very interesting outside of the Kevin Love memes, which are going to happen at some point where he's going to get so frustrated once again.
Yeah, Gerald. Again, a great lead-in. Thank you. It's almost like they remind me of like a disjointed, warped kind of like Ralph.
I compared them to the Island of Misfit Toys.
Yes, that's a perfect description of them. It's just this weird grouping of different parts, and they seem very, very reluctant to want to both pay Colin Sexton and form a relationship with him long term. I'm not sure what's going on there. Personally, I'm with you, Gerald. I'd rather keep Darius Garland. I think he's the better of the two players. I think you need to find a player in the backcourt who fits with him better. Sexton and Garland that's just a train wreck of a defensive unit that's not going to get better. Colin Sexton has been a negative defender and getting worse and worse by the year, it seems. I'm with you. I think eventually Mobley needs to be moved to center. That's his natural position. I think they'd be lucky to win 15 games this year.
Oh, man. That's a pretty struggling season. Jamie, do you concur with Magic Man on that?
Yeah, I mean, 15, 20, somewhere in there. I don't see much. I mean, look, Kevin Love's going to come up with, he's going to play 20 games probably, right? He's just biding his time until his contract runs out and he can retire and pick up an analyst job somewhere, and that'll be that. I think mentally, I think he's kind of done with the NBA. They offered him a contract extension, and like, any smart person, he took millions of dollars and said, yes, please. And I will never begrudge any professional athlete for those moments, because when those moments come, you have to go with it. I think that Ricky Rubio is going to end up forcing his way into the starting lineup incredibly. Just on defense alone. You're gonna. I think Sean's right. The perimeter defense of this team is. I just don't see it. And they traded away some of their better defenders from the seasons prior, and Nance and anyway, I forget the other guy, but I just see this team as being I don't. Yeah, the team of the land of mismatched toys is an apt descriptor of this team because it's tall and small, right? Like you said, there's not a lot of great wings. So you either have 6'4" under guys or 6'11" guys, or guys who just aren't going to play, right? Or they're not really NBA. They'll play like rotational minutes because they're on the team, but you're not looking at that guy going, there's the difference maker. So I would say 15 to 20 games for this team.
Well, it doesn't look like a very good season for them, but there are more teams that we're going to cover on today's program, and one of those teams is the team in question because it's not sure we're going to get out of it because last year was kind of a dumpster fire with Nate Bjorkgren as coach. So they have this team at Indiana Pacers with a lot of complementary pieces. They've got some size, some skill, some talent, and then now you bring in Rick Carlisle. Is Rick Carlisle the difference in Indiana, Magic Man? Do you think they really got a chance to go ahead and go farther than where they did last year?
I don't think so, Gerald. But I will say this. Last season, watching Greg Foster almost fight Goga on the Indiana bench was pretty funny. Former Laker Greg Foster.
Yep.
I don't think they have what it takes this year. Karis LeVert is coming off a very, and good on him and well wishes to Karis for the good health, but he's also coming off a stress fracture in his back. And I know there were people were saying, oh, well, he's going to make a full recovery off that. And well, perhaps, but that's a load injury and it's a serious load injury and they need to take their time with that. It's just, I don't see Sabonis and Miles Turner forming an effective unit under Carlisle, and I think that'll come pretty clearly pretty soon within the first, I'd say, 25, 30 games. He's going to come to the conclusion that they can't play together either. I see them as a play-in team. I just don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs, so I'd slot them in as a 7th, 8th, 9th seed, and I think that's as far as they go.
Well, there you go. From there, I think the team, like you said, has got its issues. I think still they need to break up that front court of, when you got a centers of Miles Turner and obviously Domantas Sabonis. I think that's been an experiment that people have long questioned that I think has to end at some point. I think it's probably better if one of those individuals gets traded. Whoever you stick with, that's great. But one of those individuals, I think, should be, they don't mesh 100% well. They never have, and I don't think they ever will. But we'll see what happens in Indiana. Philadelphia, one of the funnest places to be this offseason with the Ben Simmons saga and all the words going back and forth. Joel Embiid saying this, Doc Rivers saying that, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, Ben Simmons is out. Then he stays out. Then Ben Simmons shows up one night in Philadelphia, and we go from there. With all that said, and we don't even know which Ben Simmons we're going to get. Is he going to actually play in games? Is he going to actually sandbag? The whole 9 yards. We don't know exactly where we're going to get with Ben Simmons. Sean, I ask you this, or actually, Jamie, I'll start with you. When it comes to Philadelphia, what are you going to get? And it will still lead to a playoff team. I mean, this was the number one team in the Eastern Conference last year.
Yeah, I think they're still a playoff team. Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid are good enough that they can bring this team across the up to this 7-8 seed, right? Especially, if they're healthy. Embiid often has nagging injuries throughout the season because he's a big guy, big frame, not the most dedicated to his conditioning, it seems like, but maybe that changed this offseason. For me, Philadelphia is the Jon Stewart beam of him like eating popcorn like this. Like you just can't tear your eyes away from this. Like, what's going to happen next? Like, the Simmons saga dominated the summer for the NBA, is now about to take control of the narrative for the beginning of the regular season. Will he play? Won't he play? What is it going to look like?
Is he even vaccinated?
He cleared health and safety protocols. I think he's like fully vaccinated. Like, they're just getting him ramped up into shape. But you also have to realize that he had to report to the team and clear health and safety protocols in order to be traded. He couldn't have been traded, I don't think, without going through those steps. So did he just like checked the boxes that he needed to check in order to like enable a trade to happen? We'll find out, I guess, on opening day for the 76ers. But I don't see this team unless there's like a Kobe-like kumbaya moment between Simmons and Embiid, the way there was between Kobe and the Laker organization. I just don't see them getting into the NBA Finals. You need chemistry to get that far. You need trust, and that is what's lacking on this team. And Doc Rivers is not the coach to orchestrate that kind of thing. For all of his Ubuntu back in Boston, it took 3 All-Stars at the peak of their powers to win 1 NBA Finals. So, I mean, that's what Doc Rivers has based a lot of his success since then on, is that one season in Boston that he's never even come close to replicating. So, they don't have Kevin Garnett on this team. They don't have Ray Allen on this team. They don't have Paul Pierce on this team. And they don't have veterans who are willing to support those 3 and buy into what those 3 need. So will Embiid and Harris be enough to, and, the solid cast of vets they have around them be enough to get into the playoffs? 100%. I think they'll be, 6, 7, 8 seed without an involved Ben Simmons. And if they can trade Ben Simmons, which they should do as soon as humanly possible. I mean, I've said a month or so ago that it's, when does Daryl Morey blink? Like, when does he realize I'm not going to get the package that I really, 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 really want, that I think I deserve because I'm such a great GM? When does he decide to just pull the trigger? And for what? Because that is the only question left. I don't see this lasting the entire season. Or if it does, it's going to be ugly.
Sean, any last thoughts on Philadelphia?
No, Gerald. Jamie hit the nail on the head. I really don't have anything to add.
But they are going to be fun to watch for altogether different reasons.
That they are going to be fun to watch. And I just, if there is any like a hint, like even somebody throws a cherry bomb into the locker room, Joel Embiid is going to find Andre Drummond wherever he is. And that will be the last we've heard of Andre Drummond in the NBA. I'm certain of it. If there's any kind of implosion with this team, Andre Drummond will retire. That is a guarantee. I guarantee it.
Oh, there you go. There's a
the worst buyout for a player ever. On whatever money he gave up was too much. You should have just cashed those checks, bro.
Unbelievable. But it still will be very interesting to see. I love the fact that there could be a great response from the Philly faithful with the day that Ben Simmons gets out there on the court. I cannot wait until that.
He's not. It's not going to happen. He's not going to show his face. I mean, it will be for another team. Wow. And then they'll boo him, and he'll be like, "Sweet, now I'm going to beat you. I'm going to shoot 3-pointers. I'm going to shoot 23 pointers on you guys tonight, and I'm going to hit them all and break the NBA record." They'll never shoot.
Well, a team with a lot less drama is the Detroit Pistons, who got the number 1 pick, Cade Cunningham. And I think the question is, how far can this team go in the future with Cade at the helm? Is Cade going to be the guy as a true number 1 pick that's going to be thought of in a good context, or is he going to be one of those number 1 picks that's not very well thought of once all is said and done? I think the process starts now. I think Cade can be a very good one personally, but we'll see what happens. Sean, your thoughts on the Detroit Pistons? I know that they're still years away from competing at a higher level, but I mean, the process starts with Cade Cunningham.
Absolutely, Gerald. It does start with Cade Cunningham. I'm like you. I'm really high on him. I really don't think he has a ceiling. I think it's a low floor for him. I think at worst, I could see him being like a Brandon Ingram type in the NBA. I think that's his floor. I think he's got the potential to be the alpha dog in the NBA. It just depends on how bad he wants it, right? And as we know with the Pistons organization, they haven't done well drafting over the last 10 or 12 years. It's either you're over-evaluating a player and you take him too early, or you're too low on a player and he drops to you, but you don't develop him properly. You've had Stan Van Gundy let a lot of great players walk out the door. See, for me, Detroit has to figure out what Killian Hayes is. I mean, does anybody really know? Because if you're going to put him beside Cade Cunningham, this is a guy who needs to be at least a number 2.
Yeah.
At the very least. Do you think he's a number 2 in the NBA, Gerald?
I'm not so sure about that. But,
I have my doubts
so
too. I like his game, and it seems like he but he can't stay healthy. He can't. Yeah. That's
we'll see what happens there with Detroit. Any last thoughts, Jamie, on Detroit and the Pistons? I mean, Cade Cunningham is the future for that team. Killian Hayes, there's still questions about him as there was so much promise coming out last year, but now he seems like potentially the odd man out when it comes to Detroit. They do have Jeremy Grant, like you said, someone who may be an individual who wants to stay there because he wants to be that 20-point-a-game scorer, but as Cade progresses, there may be the thought that he might be moved at some point. They do have Kelly Olynyk, who will be shooting up 3-pointers and probably will be traded at some point as well. But your thoughts on Detroit?
I mean, this is a team in search of a starting center. Kelly Olynyk is fine, but they need somebody that for all these great guards they have to run, to be able to clean up their misses, help them out on the back line on defense, stuff like that. Yeah, I would not move Jeremy Grant. I think that they can grow together. I think Jeremy Grant is a guy that you can, he's going to be, he won't be like Devin Booker or, he's not that kind of on that kind of rise trajectory, but he's a solid scoring forward. And, he doesn't necessarily need to have the ball in his hands all the time to be that. So I think, this team just needs to find the starting center for them of the future, and they don't have it right now. And so that's what this team needs more than anything else, and some stability. So many of these teams that we're talking about who are not on the, on the rise are teams that just like every season seem to like throw a bunch of pasta at the wall and see what tries to stick. And that's never been a way. There's never been a path to success in the NBA. That's more of a path to success in baseball, where you can like throw a bunch of guys together and they all get like tough in the locker room and get like, pissed off at the opposing pitcher. And some guy who hit 5 home runs last season hits 30 this year. And, some guy who can't play defense suddenly starts, catching everything that comes. A pitcher that was like 5-year already goes down to a 2, things of that nature. But in the NBA, you kind of get who you get. There's not a lot of like late season growth stories, career growth stories that come out of the NBA. Not zero, but not a ton. So this is a team, and again, I don't know what the identity of this team is. Pretty young with some old, with some old players on it, but they're not the kind of old players that you look at and say like, oh, that's a solid building block. So I'm not sure I don't see them as a playoff team is my basic premise.
One team that could surprise a lot of people is in the Eastern Conference, and that is Chicago and the Bulls, and the team that definitely is got the offense, that's for sure. So I'll start off with you, Jamie, as we get Magic Man back here as well, Mr. Sean Grice. Jamie, Chicago Bulls. I want to ask you this in regards to them. This is a team, Alex Caruso, the GOAT aside. They're going to have a hard time on the defensive end, but scoring points will not be a problem.
Yeah, the GOAT that got away.
Tell me about it.
Oh, I can go on and on. We could do a whole podcast about it. Let's start one now.
It'll be Lakers oriented.
We're what? We're like almost an hour and a half in. Let's go an hour and a half on Alex Caruso and go. Exactly. No, I agree. This is a team that is not designed to play defense yet. Caruso is a solid on-ball defender. Decent help defender. But after that, not a lot. DeMar DeRozan, nope. Zach LaVine, nope. Nobody that jumps out at me. I mean, okay, so let's say
Vucevic, no.
Can you play Lonzo Ball and Caruso at the same time in the backcourt with DeMar DeRozan at the 4? Because that means Zach LaVine's at the 3, right? Like who closes games for this team?
Yeah.
What does this closing lineup look like? they've got like 6 or 7 guys that could apply for that job, and it's going to be an interesting plot to see who wins the audition, who gets a role in the closing lineup. If Lonzo Ball continues to show improvement like he did towards the end in New Orleans, this team could be a bit of a surprise to a lot of, and they would defend better at that point than you might expect, because that means that Lonzo Ball's playing a lot of minutes in crunch time, executing well on both ends of the court. And that means that one of Caruso, Levine, and DeRozan has established themselves as a decent defender, which basically means, can Caruso score more than one of those two guys, which isn't going to happen. So I don't see Caruso as being the crunch time guy, or unless they go really small.
They're going to have to, because
they're going to have to.
I mean, you here's what happens with them, right? What are you doing with Patrick Williams? You drafted him 4th overall in 2020.
Right.
Brought in Lonzo Ball,
right?
Brought in
DeMar DeRozan,
and you
right.
brought in DeMar DeRozan. So,
right.
What are you doing here?
Right.
This is what I'm trying to. Gerald, do you understand this?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's a process where you have the capability. You wanted to make a lot of big splashy moves, and they did. The problem is now that are all these splashy moves going to work?
Right.
I mean, I mean, Jamie, do you see this as a playoff team? I do think they are a playoff team, but how far up the playoff tree, I think, is another question.
7-8 playing at 7-8 at best, more likely playing is my pick. But it's the East, so a lot can change in the East based on an injury or two, right? Or who gets traded west, right? Because that's the East was a joke for a long time, and then they kind of built up a stockpile of talent, and we're like, oh, now it's kind of comparable. But as soon as somebody gets disgruntled, it feels like there's an agreement amongst Eastern Conference executives. Whoever that's good, we'll trade them out west, so that now we have another crap team that we can just walk all over out here. It's incredible to me how many great players get traded out west for kind of shoddy returns in the East, but. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this team is going. They've also got Troy. They've got a bunch of young guard forward type guys, but then they brought in DeRozan. So it's like, are we win now? Are we developing? Are we developing a win now? They're kind of caught between stages. They don't look like a win now team to me, but they're not really acting like a developing team. So it's an interesting roster. They're in the East, so there's
a position where they can't trade Zach LaVine.
It's built around Zach LaVine, right? Zach LaVine is the identity of the team.
Exactly. He's pretty much their only real tradable asset that they could get value back in return.
I mean, DeRozan,
but they can't trade him because they've put all these guys around him, because he's never been in a winning situation in the NBA. In Minnesota, we all remember the look on his face when the Minnesota Timberwolves drafted him. It was a top 3. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but it was a top 3 moment as far as draft faces, along with Charles Barkley, and So. I'm with Gerald. I think they are a playoff team, and I think depending on circumstances, they could get as high as 6. I mean, to me, they're the number 1 confusing team in the NBA. They could win 45 games, or they could lose 50.
Right. Because they might be the team that they might win the championship of losses by 1 point, right? We were in it for 48,
right? Yeah,
and Chris Paul hit a ridiculous 3 as time expired. We were in it for 48, and LeBron, found AD open under the basket somehow. Why weren't we playing? You know what I mean? Losses like that.
They're gonna win a lot of games, 125, 103, and then lose 117, 114 because you can't get stops.
Or the threes don't fall, so they lose 120 to 82, right? Because they're going to take 43s a game. So yeah, that's an interesting team to me too.
But Chicago did send a message out there that they're getting serious about trying to compete in the Eastern Conference. Another team that is thinking about really getting serious in the Eastern Conference is in New York with the New York Knicks. They made some additions on top of a already successful regular season. Unfortunately, it fizzled out in the first round of the NBA playoffs against Atlanta, but they added Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker to their already very heavy backcourt rotation, which I thought was pretty good to start off with. But Sean, I want to hear your thoughts on the Knicks. Do you think you're going to get another great season out of Julius Randle that will propel them to another playoff slot? I think that we'll see the playoffs. I just don't know how far.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gerald. I have them as the sixth seed in the East. I think they're a solid six. Even with a couple of injuries here and there, I think they play the kind of defense where they're going to be competitive in 95% of their games. I like their backcourt a lot. I really like IQ. I'm not sure what his ceiling is, but I think he's really he's I think a special weapon for them. I'm not a fan of the Fournier move. I've never been like Evan Fournier is a great FIBA player. Like when with the rules different, Evan Fournier could win MVP if
Right.
it was FIBA rules. He's a great shot. He can create space. He's got a pretty decent off ball game. But in the NBA where it's close quarters, it's different atmosphere. I like the Kemba Walker move, but again, I think with Tibbs as your coach, Kemba is more of a specialist. I think he'll be in a closing lineup when you need a bucket, and he's a bucket getter. So I think he's going to play more of his role. They're going to try and facilitate as much as they can a role for him the way he had at UConn, where maybe him and Derrick Rose figure out who's better off the ball, which obviously would be Kemba, and you try and figure out the machinations with Julius Randle with those three. That's what I see the Knicks being.
All right, we're going to go rapid fire on the last couple teams that are left. Once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break, along with my good friends, Mr. Jamie Sweet and Sean Grice, a.k.a. the Magic Man. Check out what they're doing at Lakerholics.com. Boston, the Celtics, I think see a lot of on the defensive end. I just think manufacturing points outside of Brown and Tatum is going to be an issue. Jamie, do you think that as well?
I hate Boston.
Well, okay, there you go. Sean, that's his thoughts.
That's
Sean,
it.
real quick
That's
on
all
that?
I got. No, they'll make the playoffs. They're fine. Whatever.
All right, Sean, I just think defensively they're going to be very good. Offensively is going to be very challenging.
You're 100% right, Gerald. I think defensively they're going to find a nice mix, especially adding Josh Richardson. I think
Oh, we might have lost Sean.
Sean.
I'll throw some. I'll begrudgingly say, after Dennis Schroeder lost the bag and fumbled the bag away, he's a Celtic now, which to me kind of actually is perfect because now there's a bunch of guys who I'm like, yeah, whatever on the same team. I think they're probably like a six. They're probably in about the same boat as New York, right? Whereas New York is going to defend and maybe be a point challenged team. Boston will score, but be a defense challenge team. I feel like just because Tatum and Brown are that good. I think that after that it might be hard for them to generate some points, but I think Jabari Parker and Schroeder and Horford they're going to generate enough points, and I kind of have that penciled in as my closing lineup for them. I guess
they're going to be a playoff team. I just don't see them as a high playoff seed.
No, I see them as again like around New York, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. I will say I think that everybody expected more out of New York last season, and then they really fizzled out in the playoffs. I'm with you. I think it's a confusing. They brought in more guards, which I thought they actually needed more wings. But great wings are a commodity in the NBA that get snapped up pretty quickly, and I wonder if the Kemba Walker Derrick Rose pairing is a kind of more of a like. We hope one of you gets to the end of the season pretty healthy because we know you both can. Orchestrated offense, and that's all we need. But yeah, I got Boston slated in as like a 6, 7, 8 kind of range.
Miami, the Heat, they made some acquisitions, including getting Kyle Lowry. They're looking to go ahead and be more competitive than what they were last season, which was an early first-round exit in a sweep. In fact, they got swept after such a promising bubble with a finals performance there. Your thoughts on their big three with Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and now Kyle Lowry?
I pretty much loved everything that Miami did in the offseason. I think that they are going to challenge for the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I think they're going to be there all season long because they have the defense. They have their core guys have all been to the NBA Finals and are hungry to go back. They were ravaged by injuries and COVID last season, so you can't look at last season. Same as why you can't look at last season for a lot of the Lakers and be like, well, that's what we should expect this season. Oladipo is going to have. I've never been a big fan of throwing a lot of money at Oladipo to bring him to the Lakers, but I am a fan of, the kind of contract that he got from Miami, which is kind of let's see what you can prove and do for us. They got Markieff Morris on the team now. They got PJ Tucker on the team now. They still have Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, all those guys who, show that they can perform at a high level in the playoffs. And it's a team that has an identity, they really have a cohesive identity, and it starts with Spo, and Butler echoes it, and that's what you need. You need your coach and your best player to be on the same page, and they are. Unlike Philly, I guess we'll see in Boston. It's a rookie coach, but there's a lot of teams that don't have an identity as solid and strong as the Heat do. And so I have them, and the addition of Kyle Lowry is just exactly what they needed. That was the kind of player that, because Jimmy's not necessarily a 20-point per game scorer, but he can get Kyle Lowry shots all game long. And that's what I expect to have happen. So I kind of have them, I look at them as a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the East.
Last but certainly not least, and the team that many expect to go all the way, even surpassing the Lakers in the NBA Finals, is the Brooklyn Nets. We all know about the drama with Kyrie and all that, so it's very iffy if he'll play at any time during the course of the season. But they still have 2 of the big 3 there, and that's something that you cannot deny, that they've got a pretty good rounded team. They've got a lot of former All-Stars, just like the Lakers do. You've got a great addition, I think, in Patty Mills. You still have Joe Harris, who hopefully will provide better clutch shooting than he did in the previous playoffs. But you do have KD, and you do have James Harden. And James Harden looks to be motivated coming into this season, unlike last. And he looks to be a lot healthier than looks like last. So I think that you cannot deny the fact that they still look like one of the NBA Finals favorites, if not one of the championship favorites, and they're still the money line betting team here in Las Vegas.
I am one of those who is a Brooklyn Nets doubter. I do see them as a top 1, 2, 3 seed in the East. I think that their issues are not going to come from scoring the ball, but on the defensive end, where I think both Milwaukee and Miami are better. I think Brooklyn would do itself such a huge favor if they just traded Kyrie Irving as soon as humanly possible and just cut bait and run. It's if they were to be able to trade him for some solid play, like Buddy Hield, right? Like trade Kyrie to Sacramento, like get Buddy Hield and a couple other complementary pieces that are just going to give you a great core of players to surround KD and Harden with, because let's be honest, I do think KD and Harden are enough with a solid core of guys around them to go all the way. Durant is one of the best scorers the NBA has ever seen, the most pure, silky smooth scorers at height that the NBA has ever seen. And Harden is a wizard all over the court. I'm curious this season to see how some of the new rules affect James Harden's game. But I also think that he's just playing good enough to adapt and then figure out another way to make it happen, whether it's by the pass, whether it's, by coming up with a different shot, or, just off ball kind of stuff. He's a savvy basketball player when engaged and motivated. And that was my big knock against them last year, was that, Harden couldn't stay on the floor. KD was coming back from the Achilles. We don't know what he's going to look like. And Kyrie is a space cadet, and Kyrie's still a space cadet, but KD looked great coming back from the Achilles, and Harden looks like he didn't spend his offseason working out at the club. So I think they're going to be better than they were last season. A lot of it, I think, comes down to the health of those two, but also the health of whoever is going to be the other, 10-ish guys that play around them. Can Joe Harris, kind of replicate what he did last season? I agree with you. I thought Patty Mills was a great pickup. I thought not paying Spencer Dinwiddie was kind of a mistake based on their cap situation. I thought that I have a hard time seeing them bringing, because he would have been great insurance right now against this Kyrie Irving saga, right? You could then argue that they still have a big three. But it is what it is. I think they did a good pivot by bringing in guys like and LaMarcus Aldridge. If he can show that he's got anything left in his game, then that's a kind of a really great stealth pickup for them at the vet minimum, because he can hit from anywhere. He's a threat out to the 3-point line, bigger than Griffin, a better defender than Griffin when healthy. I just don't know. We haven't seen him in about a year or so, so I don't know what he's got left in the tank in terms of his NBA game. He should be healthy. He's had time to rehab any lingering nagging injuries he may have had at the end of his last stint as a player. So that's sort of the big question for me is what kind of defense can this team come up with all these name stars who none of them are lockdown defenders. And Steve Nash was never a defensive minded guy as a player and hasn't really shown that as a coach. So what does this team defense look like? Again, regular season, I think the Nets and the Lakers are kind of in the same category in the regular season. I think they're going to get, 55, 60 wins. It would be hard for them not to, based on the sheer talent that they have on that roster. But come the playoffs, are they going to be able to stop Giannis? Are they going to be able to stop, a Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry 1-2 punch with the threat of Hero and Duncan raining threes on the weak side? I don't know that they have that in them on this roster.
Well, there you have it. Those are NBA team previews right there for you. We finished them all off, and with our mega-sized episode, we did it. Want to thank Jamie Sweet and also a departing Sean Grice, who departed because of the battery on his phone. But
I knew as soon as he switched to the phone, I was like, this is going to be about 5 minutes. Maybe.
That's why you have a charger. MagicMan, charger. They work. But before we head on out, my friend, you got to go ahead and give a quick update of what you're doing at your 5 Things articles at Lakerholics.com.
I meant to drop 5 Things season preview a couple days ago, but this week kind of got away from me, and I'm still working on it. So that's going to drop before the first game of the season for the Lakers on Tuesday. Hopefully it'll be done tomorrow, but it might be done Tuesday.
6:55 p.m. on Tuesday.
So I've got roughly 60 hours.
We'll see what happens there, though. I'm sure it'll be something definitely worthwhile, but you can check it out at Lakerholics.com. Don't forget all the great Laker Tom articles that are there, all the stuff that MagicMan writes, and look forward to seeing all the stuff that he has to offer. But please, if you want to be part of the conversation on the Lakers basketball team and everything Lakers, go ahead and check it out today, Lakerholics.com. Well, Jamie, cannot thank you enough for being on this mega-sized episode. Looking forward to many conversations with you. Got to still do late nights. I know we got to do and arrange that late nights Laker Fast Break podcast. Can't wait to do those with you. Any last thoughts on the way out?
I think it's going to be a really interesting NBA season. I think some of the teams that were on the bubble of making the playoffs are poised to take a step forward. And some of the teams that surprised people by making the playoffs last time have to prove that it wasn't a fluke and that they're not going to have a little bit of a regression. There's always a little bit of ebb and flow in the NBA season when it comes to those sort of things. So it's going to be interesting. And can everybody, it's so funny every year that not one of these major market teams wins the NBA finals, you almost forget who won the NBA championship the year before. Nobody's talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Zero people. Oh yeah. And the Bucks. So I'm kind of looking forward to see, can the Bucks replicate the season? I mean, they've been regular season juggernauts for a few seasons now, and last season they were able to push through and win an NBA championship. So can they show that level of can they bring that same fire and energy and try to repeat. Nobody has them picked to repeat. I don't have them picked to repeat. I'm hopeful the Lakers will win. But if it's Lakers Bucks, that'll be epic. Because that could be interesting. But yeah, those are the sort of things going on. And will Luke Walton stay the coach of the Sacramento Kings for the entire season? That's my other hot button topic, because I was surprised that they picked up his final year. He didn't get an extension. He's a lame duck. So he's got to show something. And who is going to trade for Karl Anthony Towns and Buddy Hield? Those are my three. Those are my three. What's going to happen before March when the trading deadline comes? NBA Nostradamus questions.
A lot of interesting questions indeed, and we'll be sure to go ahead and pass it along each and every episode right here at the Lakers Fast Break. Don't forget, on Tuesday, we are presenting our NBA season preview. The thing that I went over were as far as in detail on the NBA season, our predictions on the Eastern and Western Conference and the NBA Finals with Mr. Rafael Barlow from the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast. Although if you're watching this on video, you can actually check it out at YouTube at the Lakers Fast Break channel or on Facebook. But if you're listening to this tomorrow, I've got a mega-sized NBA season preview with Rafael. And thank you so much for listening to this mega-sized team previews with Jamie and also Sean. Cannot thank you guys enough. But we will be back, of course, tomorrow for a season preview and, of course, on post-game for the Lakers' first game that's coming up against the Warriors. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll see you guys and hear you guys very soon when we come back to you this week, as the start of the season is just around the corner right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.